Hello, my name's Tim, and I'm going to be taking you through HorizonLens, the financial planning application. And today's focus video is adding some expenses. So in the My Current Situation here, if you click on where we have expenses, we're going to be presented with this screen here. Now, if it's the first time that you are in this screen, you're going to get some little bit of help and instructions in terms of these yellow boxes, kind of giving you some help, I suppose, where we have show me some expenses example. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to automatically bring in some expenses for you just so you can have a little bit of a play around. Let's just go and remove these ones. Back on where we were to start off with. Again, we've got a bit of a reminder that we are sort of need to set up our expenses. Okay, so the first job, of course, is to do that, and we're going to click on where we have add expenses. Pop that in there. You get this screen here where you can choose the type of expenses that we're going to add, which could be, most of the cases, it might be a regular expense. We're going to click on regular. Then we have a series of subcategories: living expenses, rent, independence, etc. So you could also search for expenses. Let's say we want to do a search for medical. We can do a search for that. It's just going to filter the category accordingly. If we click on living expenses as an example, we're then presented with this screen here. This is where we're going to add in those expenses. We have mandatory, discretionary, special, and debt. So in most cases, if it's living expenses, then of course it's going to be mandatory. So leave it as a mandatory as a default. And this is going to be the annual equivalent here. If we are specifying our expenses monthly, alternatively is to add it annually if you wanted to, or every n months, for example. So I'm just going to leave it at monthly. Enter a value, for example, 600 here. It's going to then calculate that as an annual alternative. And of course, you could do it the other way around. You could put the annual event at annual equivalent, and then it's going to calculate it the monthly for you. A little bit of a summary here. Then we have our schedule. So the schedule is going to be when you're starting. It will say the current age. This particular example is 52 month, and the end date age. So if, for example, we've got some living expenses that's going to end at a certain date, then you can specify that here, perhaps not 95, maybe 58 as an example. Or if they're going to continue, you can just leave it blank. That's your schedule. Then we have growth. If you click on that, this could be whether your living expenses are going to increase as a fixed amount, as an annual increase. We can specify that here, drag in the slider, or we can just link them to inflation, which is going to be specified in the assumptions for the inflation rate. We also have a custom if you're going to have a certain percentage which is above the inflation. So inflation might be 2.5%, and then you want to add an extra percentage or so above that, or below it, or above it. Just leave it at 1 for there. We have the milestone and spending. So this is where we can attach, as it says here, the expenses to particular milestones. Maybe, for example, you are getting married on a certain date. You could create a milestone called getting married, and then you could come in, and rather than having its living expenses, you could, let's just actually come out of there. You could come off and do it as a one-off expense. And we could say here we are getting married as a wedding, and we could then create the milestone for getting married, and then we can then set up any spending flexibility with that given a particular expense. I expect for a wedding is essential, but if it's for maybe other expenses, let's say, for example, we come in here and we choose something like a custom expense or maybe lifestyle. We could have, for example, a vacation, and then we could come into our milestone spending, and we could say it's fully discretionary or partially discretionary. So means we're not going to necessarily, if we don't have the money available in our plan, then it's not going to fund this particular expense. Then we're going to choose the funding mechanism. The default is the income buffer, which is a special built-in account where the money goes if you don't want it to specify a specific account, or you come into the specific account and then choose whether it's coming from a cash account or maybe from another account there. And then it's just a case of clicking save. So I'm just going to come into here, maybe set this to 600 a month. It seems a bit much, maybe 50. Hit save, and then we can create ourselves a expense. And that's pretty much it for the basic video on creating expenses. If you just want to, and now we've added some expense, if you just want to remove it, we can click on where we have the remove button. If I wanted us to play with more expenses, I'm just going to click on the button here just to get a few more added in. You can see the types we are added in, mostly essential ones. Living costs and healthcare are examples, and we also have some fully discretionary ones, as I've already mentioned in this video.